Hey gang, it's Will from Tested.
And it's Norm from Tested.
Norman Chan, it is Pebble Time.
That is a name of a product.
Yes.
Also, it is a saying.
It's what happens right now.
Today we are reviewing the Pebble Time Smartwatch. It's the newest Pebble, now available widespread, but it was launched originally on Kickstarter. Hugely successful, and I have it in a bouquet of smartwatches.
This is a nice arrangement. You have in front of you. You have an original Pebble Steel.
Yes, the Pebble Steel, which is technically, I guess, the second generation Pebble.
But it's the same
hardware.
Yeah, same
just
screen.
A different optically bonded screen as the Kickstarted Pebble. A little more expensive than, of course, the Pebble Time, what we're talking about today. And just for comparison's sakes, I do have Will's Apple Watch and my Asus Zen Watch.
So we're all smarched up today.
Yeah, and if you've watched our reviews in the past, you know smartwatches are things that we're still figuring out. We know that they're really good for notifications when configured properly. They kind of teach you how to prune the notifications from your phone. And beyond that, a lot of the functionality will depend on what type of hardware you have.
And it's kind of up and down. You know, I know on the Apple Watch, a lot of the stuff that is on top of notifications, kind of a crappy experience, at least until they release Apple Watch OS 2.0 later this year, right. When that can run natively instead of
native applications or their applications that are tied to your smartphone. But Pebble, as an ecosystem, is very popular. We know people who are just Pebble diehards.
And we both wore Pebbles for a fairly significant period of time. I actually still really, really like the design of that Pebble Steel. Yeah. It's a little chunky looking these days, and it's heavier than I think any of the other smartwatches that we have.
But that shape, I think, is really nice.
The shape is good. The screen is really, really readable, and their original metaphor for watch faces and timeline stuff worked really well, I thought.
Yep. So with Pebble Time, what you have is not only a new hardware for the internals, this display, and we'll talk about that in just a second, but also software. The interface is slightly different, and that will make its way down to original Pebble users. But what makes Pebble really different from all of the other active display smartwatches like the Apple Watch, like the Google Wear, Android Wear watches, is the display. So the Pebble Steel and the original Pebble use a black and white sharp memory LCD. It's not e-ink. It's not exactly what's in your Kindle.
They called it e-paper, I think, right?
It's memory LCD. It actually is an LCD display there. And what that means is, even though it's not backlit, it does have a very high refresh rate. So it has about a 30 hertz, 30 frames per second animations that can play, limited by the processor and battery life.
But it also means that it uses a lot less power when pixels aren't changing.
When they're not changing. So applications, watch faces can use much lower refresh rate. They don't have to if you don't have a moving second dial. It can refresh maybe once a minute, and therefore you can get battery life up to a full week. And that was really the real big usability advantage.
I mean, they claimed a full week. In reality, I think the most I ever saw with the Steel was 5 days.
Sure.
But still, that is 3 days better than any other smartwatch that we've used.
Yep. With the Pebble Time, it's still a memory LCD, but now the big change is that it's color. It's a color display. So take a look at that right now. I'm going to bring it up, and you can see that's.
Wow, it looks really good.
Well, I'm bouncing it off the light, but it is a memory LCD, has the exact same resolution, pixel dimensions, as the original Pebble, which is 144 by 168. They kept it that way for the watch face and app compatibility.
Okay.
But now displays 64 colors. So
and it's the same button layout and stuff too, right?
Yeah. So same 4-button layout, but the display-wise, 64 colors, still I believe a 30 hertz refresh rate, and even with this pixel density, 144 by 168, you can get a lot of information on here. I have the time on this watch face, the date, temperature, and even dots here to show battery life. And 64 colors doesn't sound like a lot. It's actually less than, for example, the original Game Boy Color. But it's you can use dithering, and they can do half colors.
People who are skilled artists can do a lot with 64 colors.
Yeah, you can do really good pixel art. For example.
Do you have the LCARS one on there?
I do not have the LCARS. Actually, I find that a little garish.
Oh, it's definitely garish.
Visibility is what is the big trade-off, and we should get this up front. The Pebble does not work in terms of visibility as well as any backlit display.
It's not, I mean, this is a trade-off, right? So they front light this display so you can see it in the dark and in poor lighting situations. But by avoiding the backlight full time, because with a normal LCD or even an OLED, you have to have some sort of light source coming all the time. And that drains battery, which is why they can do 4 days versus, 2 on the Apple Watch.
On the Pro side, it is always on, so there's no waiting for it to run. For example, Apple Watch, if you have to kind of flick it on, there goes that's a little delay. On the Android Wear Watch, flip it on, tap it.
But you have hold those displays up next to each other, and you have a complete different vibrancy and color situation. You can adjust the brightness on the LCD and OLED displays. I don't think you can do that on the Pebble Time, right?
Yeah, let's show the best case scenario. Of course, this is an OLED. That's an OLED, and some OLED watches actually on the Android Wear will do always on, like the backlit showing few pixels. But for example, here's the best case indoor scenario for the Pebble, kind of bouncing off. You got to want to even seek that glare. There it goes. That's the best case. And then the Android Watch, you tap it, it's bright as hell.
So the thing I found using it is that the amount of time, a lot of people when the Apple Watch came out complained about the length of time it takes to twist your arm up and have the watch turn on. I found that it took almost the same amount of time for me to find the right angle to view the Pebble at.
I think the angle is actually really good.
It works out once you get used to it, but you kind of hold your arm in the same position over and over again is the thing I found.
It's the same position, yeah. So when I'm driving, for example, and have this on, where it is in my wrist and where I am in 10 and 2, perfect.
Yeah,
where light usually it's
they chose the angle well.
Yes, but what you get is limited field of view. So we showed you that best case scenario. I'm going to show you again. Here's the best case scenario for how bright it is, and that's reflecting off of our studio lights. So you're going to see that glare right there.
Yep, those are studio lights
right there. But if I turn it, let's try this way. Oh no, can you see it? I can't see it at all.
But I'm never going to look at my wrist from up here.
I'm just saying, just a limited.
I think the worst thing is that when you're rotating your wrist, there are blind spots. Yeah.
There you go. I'm going to show it this way. There you go. And kind of went flat right there.
Right, and frankly, the studio lighting is a pretty good situation. Similarly, when you're outside, it works really well.
Yeah, so we recorded yesterday a clip of outside, what it looks like, just rotating my wrist. And, outdoor, the sun is a magnificent source of illumination.
It turns out it's powered the entire Earth for billions of years.
And at the right angles, looks great. So let's roll that clip real quick to show you outdoors. Yeah.
So you still have the kind of off-axis problem, but it's much less pronounced.
Can't see it. Perfect. A little wider, field of view. But really, you do need to find that perfect angle for visibility.
It's much more important in low lighting situations. So if you're in, say, a dimly lit bar, someplace that's bright enough that the backlight doesn't trigger automatically, but dark enough that you're going to have trouble seeing it, it's almost but not quite useless.
It's something you just kind of live with. That is a limitation of the technology. There are, of course, pros and cons. Some people are okay with it. Some people really want to be able to, use it in the dark and don't like the backlight, which we'll illustrate in a second also. But my biggest complaint with the display is how recessed it is below that bezel. It looks like there's curved Gorilla Glass on the top here, and if we switch back to the Pebble view, you can actually see there's outer plastic bezel, there's an inner black bezel,
and there's a little bit of a recession there between the glass and the bezel. Yeah.
But if I turn it, you can actually see the shadow of the bezel cast over the screen. It is really, really below that.
Can you compare that to the steel so that people, the steel felt like it was right on the surface. It felt almost like a physical
much closer
item.
So with the steel and the upcoming Pebble Time steel, it actually is optically bonded.
Oh, it is. It's a different bonding with
It's a different bonding with the steel models. That's what you're paying. That's what you're paying for. For steel, it actually looks much closer to the surface, and it's a little tough to see. But there, that's like a really. You can see that shadow right there on the top.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So we have a steel coming too, and we'll test that out when it gets here, and share feeling Pebble Time steel. When we have that.
The being recessed below that glass and the deep bezels, I think that contributes to the limited field of view, at least on the plastic Pebble Time version.
What did you think about the plastic band Out of curiosity.
Plastic mount, I thought was totally fine. This is a band that you can, of course, replace. It's a 22 millimeter band, and I can show you how easy it is.
It's a standard thing. It's not like the Apple Watch where you're stuck with their particular thing, or even with the Pebble Steel where they had a kind of custom mount for it.
And this, of course, is the Kickstarter backer version. While we're in the back here, I'll show you that's the charging port right there. It comes with a USB charger, and that just magnetically snaps in.
How does it compare to the Steel?
Plug that in.
Because the Steel, and more specifically the first Kickstarter version, I found had a tendency to not be charging when you thought it was on.
Because the Steel one didn't grip as well, and they are compatible? Not compatible.
Not compatible. No.
But this is actually a pretty good grip. Look.
Oh yeah, you can hold the whole. That would have never worked with the original Kickstarter version.
There we go. That's the amount of strength.
So can we talk about the software?
Yes, absolutely.
The changes to the timeline?
Yeah, so from a usability perspective, and I'm going to give you one more thing. You know what, I'm just going to hide this. Here's the backlight. You can't see it at all. That's the backlight.
I mean, when I used it, I found the backlight mode to be preferable to trying to find the right angle in a dimly lit room.
Yeah, backlight gives you a little wider field of view because I can like go off axis, for example, vertically off axis, and still see it, but it does wash it out a little bit. There you go. You see it's a little washed out right there?
Yeah.
So it's going to look best, the color is going to look best with reflection like that, but if it's dark, you can turn on that backlight. I mean, and there's motion sensing if you want to use that to turn on the backlight.
The one thing that it is worth mentioning is that this screen, if you're outside a lot, is going to be much more readable than any of the OLED or LCD screens.
That's right.
Just because of its reflective nature.
Yep.
So
that sun, that's a really good illumination source.
Yeah.
Now, of course, let's talk about that UI, as you mentioned earlier. The timeline is the new thing. Now, it does have the same 4-button configuration, and I really, really like having buttons on the smartwatch. It lets me, like, for example, the Android Wear, no buttons at all. You have to use swipes and taps. This is not a touchscreen, and the Apple Watch is kind of in the middle in that it is a touchscreen. That's the primary interface, but it does have two interface buttons, this favorites button and also the jog dial.
But I mean, for all intents and purposes, the Apple Watch has one button and then a shortcut to the favorites menu, right?
Maybe that'll change in the future, programmable, whatever.
Who knows?
But 4 buttons here really is a logical interface.
So it's forward, back, up, and down, just as before?
Yeah. Okay. Back is right here, forward's here, and you have up and down. And while that may seem like there are only 4 actions you can do, they're contextual. So you can double tap, you can long press, and developers can tap into these things as well.
Did you think they did a good job explaining where you can double tap and long press and stuff like that?
Not in apps. For example, a timer app, long press is a reset a timer.
Yeah.
That's not very clear. You could be double tap. But the timeline is logical. So in the default home state, when you're looking at the watch face, if you hit up or down, you're going to go through basically your calendar timeline. And this taps into your Google Calendar. In the companion app, you can configure what's shown, which of your calendars are actually shown, if you have a lot of shared Google calendars. And it'll do a couple days back and a couple days forward to the end of the week. So today is always the timeline here. And it'll also do things like, for example, show you sunset time. So sunset today is...
And you can turn 8:24.
8:24, and that's when it's highlighting, and I can click that, and it'll tell you the time.
Why does it think you're in Livermore, Norm?
I don't know. I think I was just in Livermore. No GPS, of course, built into this thing.
You get tomorrow. Hold on. Wait, are you using Celsius?
It does both?
That looks like Celsius to me.
Yeah.
What kind of social nonsense is this?
Because it shows clearly, load that time.
Load that temp.
It tells you temperature in the bottom right-hand corner. It should be in Fahrenheit, actually. So that's the timeline. That's something that will get passed on to the older Pebbles.
But
I don't actually use it.
Is the gist is go up to go to the past and go down to go to the future.
Up to go in the past, down the future. I don't use it to remind me of events that are coming up. But what I do is it does let me tap into the details of those calendar events. For example, if I have a meeting coming up later and I have phone numbers attached to that meeting or locations, I can tap into it and it'll display all that below.
That's good. So what notifications does it show?
It shows whatever you want. And now's a good time actually for me to show the companion app. Now I'm going to load that really quickly on my phone. The companion app is different for Pebble Time than it is for the original Pebble. You have to download the new Pebble Time companion app. It connects over Bluetooth or Bluetooth LE.
People were upset about that, but they had a good reason for doing it. It means that they can use, if you want to switch back and forth between your Pebble and your Pebble Time, you can.
Yes,
so
exactly.
You can keep both apps on the phone, and I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah. Now
it pulls from the same store, though, right?
It does pull from the same store, and I'll show that really quickly, which is just a web page actually. The store lists applications you can download, which for original Pebble or Pebble Time specific ones. They will sort, for example, favorite color apps. So if you want to only get the stuff that takes advantage of the color screen or the Pebble Time. The hardware-wise, it is a little faster processor in the Pebble Time over the original Pebble. It's 100 megahertz as opposed to 80 megahertz. A lot of that is for the voice processing. It's a different Cortex ARM chip. I think it's an M4 versus M3. So it's a little bit faster, but usability-wise, it actually feels exactly the same. The animations are pretty smooth on both. The real big difference, though, is that there's more storage and memory on the new Pebble Time. And one of the big limitations on the old Pebble, and I believe you still have this interface set up.
I haven't updated it yet.
Is that instead of showing a timeline, when you hit up and down, you show either different watch faces or applications.
Usually you have to even drill into the applications through the menu.
And here goes your watch faces, right? And you have to go in the menu, and then
the apps will be down at the bottom.
Watch faces, settings, and here go your menu, your applications, right? And on the original Pebble, you had this limitation of 8 total things.
So watch faces or apps.
Or apps. Like for example, here on your Pebble Steel, you have 3 applications.
I think Compass comes with it.
Or 2 applications, and then 7 of these watch faces.
Well, you have some that are built in.
And some that are built in as custom watch faces.
Yeah.
That limitation is gone with Pebble Time, and that's huge.
How many can you put in?
You can put up to 50 different things.
That's more than you're ever going to need.
More than ever going to need. So what I have is watch faces, and you can just load up whatever you want. I have a mix of my old favorites. I love dots, for example.
Dots is really good. Wow, that buzzer sounds loud.
Buzzer, and there goes dots. But I like
using, that's really fast too.
Yeah, Weatherland is my current favorite. Click check.
Weatherland is gorgeous.
And there goes.
So this is how you change watch faces now? You can't do it from the watch itself?
You can do it from the watch.
Okay.
And this is my other one that I like really well, Love Weather.
Because you love love and you love weather.
And here, that's actually it transferring to the watch. And there it goes.
Do you know what's really useless, Norm?
What?
A weather app in San Francisco.
Yeah, it's true. It's microclimates.
It's always foggy.
And then you can, of course, adjust your applications. Now, applications are now, just like the old Pebble, you have to hit forward. And then scroll down past the default settings. So past here, and here go your applications. Cards for Pebble, Pandora, and they will correspond to what I have on the companion app, and then you can of course rearrange things. For example, rearrange GoPro and dialer, and then update it.
So the thing I found, like the original Pebble and like the Apple Watch, is that for the most part, applications are kind of inconvenient.
They're not that great. There are a bunch of news and sports scores applications. The things that are kind of to feed you information, I find the most useless. But the things that are utilities, like a stopwatch, are the most useful.
The ones that I ended up using a lot were things like the ability to adjust my Nest from if I was laying in bed and forgot to turn down the heat, then I could do that from the watch, which was really convenient.
Here's a timer application to illustrate actually the refresh rate. It's actually pretty good.
Wow, that's really good.
Right there.
You can high speed that and tell exactly how fast it is.
It's 30 frames per second. You can record it at 120 FPS with your iPhone, and you can actually see the refresh, the redraw.
It goes across sideways?
Side to side.
Cool.
But it's pretty fast.
I like the backfill on the side. This screen, it's really unfortunate about the viewing angles on the screen, because it's really a nice screen. 64 colors is pretty rad.
Here's an application load time. So with that 100 megahertz processor, loading something like a game takes, let's wait for it. Oh no, I don't have the watch on my wrist.
Are people who aren't crazy going to play games on their watch, Norm?
No. Games they kill battery life, and it's novel, but look at this. I can play.
Is this Flappy Bird?
Yeah, Tiny Wings.
Tiny Wings.
Oh, I did it wrong. Come on. Oh,
you're the worst Tiny Wings player
I started off poorly. Come on. I think I'm just going to let the nighttime catch up with me. Oh, there it goes.
You aren't even doing anything now, and you're doing better.
Lower.
Faster. Must wing.
The responsiveness is good. So this one, of course.
I can tell by your excellent play.
Come on. Oh, the sun's setting.
You need to let off before you get to the bottom.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God. This is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
There it goes. Oh, I'm going to make it past the other island. Woo! Fantastic.
I don't think that you earned that fantastic, sir.
And I lost.
I mean, that's kind of amazing,
that
but
you can play that, yeah.
Realistically,
no.
Do you have sound?
No sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, no sound, no speaker on here.
No best with headphones.
Now, that does lead us to talk about the other new feature on here. While there is no speaker built into the Pebble Time, there is a microphone. And the microphone, I believe, is right there.
It's a little tiny hole that voice goes into.
On the microphone, what you can do with the microphone, extremely, extremely limited.
It didn't do much when I tried this with iOS.
It doesn't do anything with iOS.
Yeah, you couldn't do Siri, you couldn't respond to texts, I couldn't figure out anything.
Yeah, and on the Android side, it's not as limited, but still pretty limited. Now, Pebble promised two things you can do with the microphone. One, voice recording, and that is actually a feature not currently available. They're still working on it.
Recording voice memos.
Recording voice memos.
That seems useful.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if you're driving, you want to record, tap, record a voice memo.
Yeah.
That's not available yet as of today, but it's coming soon. Other thing is to respond kind of to text messages and emails. So. I actually have notifications mostly disabled because I didn't want to pop up during this review. But on Android, I can actually show you notifications are very customizable. Something we didn't mention. I can select, and this is only on Android, which notifications, which apps I want to have notifications pop up. And this is previously on the old Pebble, a third-party app. On Pebble Time, it's just built in. I've selected nothing except for Google Hangouts.
Hey, what an amazing coincidence.
So let's get a Google Hangout sent to me, and I'll show you what I can do when I get a message pop up. And like you mentioned earlier, this is a good time to show that annoying vibration sound. It's really annoying. It's only on the table.
I think it's more fair to put it on your wrist.
Oh God, that was loud. But there goes.
Can you miss it?
You can never miss it.
You never miss it.
I never miss it.
Do you have phantom vibration because it's so powerful?
Yes, and when I put it on like the bedstand, it's annoying in the morning.
Well, it does the sleepy time mode still.
You can schedule a sleepy time. And I'll show that also. So you sent me a Hangout, and it pops up, and it'll actually stay up there until I dismiss it.
That's really nice.
Which is nice. It doesn't just go away. Like if I leave it on, if I don't look at the wrist, if I pop it up, and it will of course queue up.
What happens if you get another message?
It will just push it away. That will push it away.
And then you can scroll back and forth through the timeline,
but
you
can't. It's not actionable unless it is the immediate
the most frequent one. So somebody else sends you another message, then you can't respond to the previous one?
No, you can't. So you send me a message, and what I can do is I can click forward, and I can do a few things. I can dismiss. For emails, I can dismiss, reply, or archive. I can open on a phone, or I can mute the app if I'm getting too many of specific notifications. This is very useful. For example, if you had Instagram set up, and you're getting a ton of likes.
If you have a crazy popular photo,
then you can just mute the application. What I can do is reply, and keep in mind how many presses I've pressed. 2 already, right? One to get that 2, and I can do a few things. I can respond with emoji, which is a list of emoji.
I heard that emoji is very popular these days.
I can respond with template responses, default responses, which I can actually pre-program 5 of them on the watch.
Okay.
So you have some default ones. These are actually my pre-programmed. Sounds good. I'm driving right now. Sorry. Or can you call?
They're very positive.
But these are the pre-programmed ones. On my way. Thanks. Sounds good.
Mine are all just variations of nope. Yeah. There you go. Now, so on Apple Watch, at least, when you do those, when you have these pre-programmed things, that's the first thing it presents you with, and then it gives you the option of drilling deeper and giving a voice response. Can you do that with this as well?
So these are my custom ones are on the top.
Okay.
And the Pebble default ones are on the bottom. This is the menu that you always goes to. You have to choose voice, template, emoji, and I'm going to respond with voice, because this is actually the only thing you can use the voice with right now. And keep in mind, as you guys watching this, how long it takes for it to process. So, sorry, Will. I'm recording a review right now. I will give you a call later. And I have to hit it again.
You have to hit it again?
And it's processing. Oh,
I'm sorry.
That's actually,
I'm recording a review right now. I will give you a call later. That's not bad.
That's not bad, and that's actually one of the fastest it's done so far. But you do have to click it twice.
Is this running on? This is going to some cloud service, I assume, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's accurate, but it takes a long time. There's actually that loading screen that happens.
And it looks like it has problems with proper names,
so
judging by that.
If you counted that,
it's like 8 presses, right?
1. Oh god.
2, 3.
I can't even
4.
respond with voice with this one. This is your other message you sent.
This is a text.
2, 3.
3. Blah 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 blah. 4.
5.
It's the same. I think it's the same number of clicks as it takes the Apple Watch, which is wholly too many clicks.
So that makes this microphone feature for responding pretty useless.
I mean, this is the same problem we had with the Apple Watch. Do the Android Wear watches have microphones as well?
Yes, they do, and incredibly fast. I don't actually have this tethered, so I can't show that right now.
Okay.
But also offloads the recording. In the Android Wear watch, we've shown in the past that Google Now, you can activate it with just your voice.
You can say, "Hey Google."
You can say, "Okay Google," and then you can say something. Do a search query. Here, the microphone feature, it's only to react to notifications. You can actually say, send a message and then use the voice dictate.
Okay.
So it's only for responses. Now you mentioned earlier what happens if I get a bunch of queued up notifications. So I have to go into the menu, go to the notification list, and I have the responses, a list of them, but if I hit it, I can't actually do anything with it. I can read the email, but I can't actually.
Is this This is probably a limitation on the way Android gives notifications to the watch, right?
Maybe. That sounds about right.
Because like a lot of this stuff doesn't work on iOS. It's been you've had this for the last 3 weeks.
iOS, you get no voice, you get no customization for notifications. You have to prune on the phone.
Right, you can't select individually, and you can't mute individual applications notifications on the watch.
I will show you that settings menu. So it does have, for example, the Do Not Disturb mode. I have it set to my schedule of Do Not Disturb from 11 to 6:30 a.m.
Okay.
But it's every day. You can't say that's only from Monday to Friday, and alert me.
And you can't pair it with the setting on the phone, which is what you really want.
Exactly. I want to have that Do Not Disturb sleep mode on the phone, or when I activate sleep. Yeah. But you can control things like music, and it does tap into things like Spotify. And I have that, for example, pre-programmed shortcuts. If I hold the up button.
So this is one of the things I love about the Pebble, the fact that it made this stuff so accessible, because it's something that I use all the time when I'm in the car and I'm listening to podcasts or music or whatever. It gives me skip, fast forward, rewind on the app that I'm currently using, which is great.
There it goes. And you can play the song.
Yep.
You heard it for just a moment. And if you want to program, for example, this, here it goes. I intentionally did not program that, so you can set your down shortcut, and these are things you can set it to.
So the music thing just uses whatever the most recently played music app on your phone was, correct?
You actually set that on the companion app.
Okay, so on the iOS side, it uses whatever the most recently used music app was.
So I just tied this to an app, the down press, great. So if I wanted to get to my timer, I just hit that, and I get a timer.
Cool.
So it's useful, and the utilities are useful. There are a ton of apps on that store. I think the companion app is really good. On Android side, you actually get, you definitely get more functionality on the Android side, and it doesn't take away the notifications on your phone,
right.
Which was a problem you had with the Apple Watch. Like I can get notifications here, they stay here. If I want to respond here or here.
I would say unpredictable notification handling was my complaint. Was my big complaint with the Apple Watch.
Yep, and there's a little bit of a delay. It still buzzes on my phone first, and I get it half a second later on the watch. But really, is for keeping the phone, in the backpack on the desk while you have the watch, and you can use this to just dismiss or reply or star.
Do you trust it enough to turn the notifications off on your phone, to silence the buzzing on your phone, and just leave the watch on?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually miss it. When I miss notifications more when the Bluetooth accidentally disconnects, which happened once or twice, than I do by not hearing it on
I mean,
the
and
phone.
the nice thing about Pebble, it didn't disconnect Bluetooth for me, but I did know on the Steel, when it disconnected Bluetooth, if you had the appropriate watch face installed, it would say, hey, you've lost Bluetooth.
Yep.
Which was really good.
Yeah, you have a Bluetooth icon on some watch faces to show the connection.
Like when I was using the Steel, that was my main way of getting notifications. I turned off buzzing on the phone, and it was a really pleasant way to live.
Ergonomically, it's okay. It has a curved back and top, which I don't think really does anything except give you the illusion that it's thinner than it actually is.
Yeah.
But it's about the same size.
I thought the band
Apple
was
Watch.
a little sweatier than the Apple plastic band.
Of course, the band is way inferior to the default Apple plastic band.
But the Apple plastic band also costs $60, and I'm sure that's about a $3 band.
And you can replace this
with anything you want.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can make it into a necklace.
The one thing I will say is that this new design, even the plastic one, looks more like a watch that human beings would wear than the old school Pebble watch, original Pebble looked like. I would put a real band on this.
If I was to rate the design, and that's purely a subjective aesthetic choice, Pebble Steel is the best. Then this, then the original Pebble. But I think Pebble Steel I think is probably my favorite of all.
Of all of the Smarches?
Probably. This looks classy.
It looks like a grown-up watch.
Yeah, this looks like a toy, a little bit like a toy. Now, battery life.
Oh, right.
Still 4 to 5 days.
Okay, so in reality, on the Steel, the best we ever got was about 5 days.
Yep.
Seems like the same.
Battery, Bluetooth LE will give you, I think, a day more battery life. And some people on the forums have said they've gotten 7 days.
Well, the old one had Bluetooth LE as well.
Some people, I get 4 to 5. I've never gotten more than 4 to 5 days. Some people said they've gotten 7.
If you turn off the buzzer, I'm sure you'll get more time.
It depends on how much you use it.
Yeah.
I think 4 to 5 is really good.
So do you have the problem? The problem I had with 4 to 5 is it was much more difficult for me to remember to plug in the watch once a week than it is for me to just take it off my wrist every night and put it on the charger.
I don't have that problem.
You don't have that problem. Okay. My wife doesn't either. She thought I was crazy.
And also, I mean, watch faces show you battery life, so our charger, and it tells you, when you're at 20%. When it tells you you're at 20%, that means you have an extra day.
That means just plug it in that night.
Yeah, if you
it's
have
not an emergency.
It's not like plug in the next minute or hour, and you get a full coffee cup image. You have 20% battery life. Yeah, then I'm going to remember to charge that night. And even nicer, I ran it down to 0 a couple of times. When it's at 0, you actually still see the time.
Oh, really? So it just turns off all the smartwatch stuff.
Everything's disabled.
That's smart.
But you still get a small little time indicator.
Okay. How was setup?
Everything is super easy to set up. You pair Bluetooth on the phone, Bluetooth here. The pairing is great. The companion app I think is really good. I think functionally, from a UI perspective, they got everything right. Like the notifications are, the way you configure notifications on Android is great. The interface with the forward, back, up, down, fantastic. These shortcuts, fantastic. Usability, like on paper, wonderful. What I really don't like about Pebble Time is it's $200, and the screen, I think, even though it's color, is a step backwards.
So you're what, $150 off of the cheap Apple Watch?
You're $100 more than the original Pebble,
right?
Which is going to get the new UI.
This is a much better looking Pebble than the original Pebble, except for the screen problems, though. Like the industrial design is way better than the original Pebble.
Yeah, but that screen, oh man. And then if you want to get the new Pebble Time Steel, then you add another $50 on top of that.
Yeah.
So at that point, you're getting close to $300 after tax.
Is it waterproof?
It is waterproof.
Okay.
I've taken showers with this. It's 30 meters under.
1 meter for 30 minutes?
I think that's what it is.
IPX7.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's not to go diving for long periods with.
But if you splash it while you're washing your hands.
Washing hands, taking showers, totally fine.
Don't take a shower with your watch, people. That's just gross.
Unless you're testing it.
Right. If you're testing it, it's fine.
Unless you're testing it.
It seems like it's a much better watch for Android users than it is for iOS users, given the current state of the iOS.
I wouldn't recommend it for iOS users.
Right. I mean, that was my takeaway too. The one thing I will say is that the original Pebble, started out as a really bad iOS smartwatch and got quite good by the end of its life. So hopefully they'll continue to improve the application over the coming months.
And they did a really good job. The animations are lovely here. Just going back and forth, 30 frames per second looks really good on the memory LCD.
So there we have it. It's the Pebble Time. Like, it seems like you're real mixed on this one, Norm.
I'm not gonna stick with this watch.
Yeah.
I want to see what the screen looks like on the Pebble Time Steel, the optical bond screen. But I really wish they just put the color screen or put the new hardware and that voice on on the Pebble Steel.
I wish that they put the better processor and the black and white. I wish they just kept the black and white screen.
Yeah.
Like the black and white screen was fine. I love having a bare bones thing. If it was $100 cheaper, even better.
Yeah, no GPS, no pedometer built in. All these are.
It has an accelerometer though.
That's not as good as the
Well,
pedometer apps are not that great.
The Jawbone pedometer app was fine in my testing. It was the same as the Band, but whether the Band was reliable or not, we don't know.
So Pebble Time. It's available now. I think Best Buy has it. Kickstarter backers should all have theirs. If you're thinking about getting it, if you're on Android, I'd say still consider the Android Wear watches. There's so many of them out now, and they have lots of good functionality.
The Google Now tie-in is the big thing that you missed with the Pebble, right?
Yes, and they said they're working on some Google Now integration, but who knows?
So that's it. Pebble Time. Maybe stay away. We'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.